Fillmore just said, it's your turn.
Drawing straws or,
Sounds like it was a not it.
yeah.
There it is.
I don't know.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Good evening and welcome to the December 12th BARS meeting. My name is Bill Turner and I will be sitting in tonight for our usual chairwoman, Ms. Van Slambrook, who could not be here this evening. If you could just kind of bear with me while I kind of get my footing here. I'll probably stumble through this to start with at least. My fellow board members here to my left are Fillmore Wilson, Becky Fenno, and Daryl Cobb, city staff present. We have Frankie Pinto, she's the BARS coordinator, Travis Golly, and senior preservation planner, and Rachel Ford, preservation planner. The order of tonight's meeting will be as follows. Staff will provide an introduction overview of each application. That'll be for both the public's benefit and the board's benefit. Following will be a presentation by the architect or whomever's representing the applicant. The applicant and his or her team will be allotted 10 minutes in which to present the project. And by team, I mean, that would also include the property owners as well. Anyone that's representing the application, associated with the application. By ordinance, the board may ask questions of the applicant at any time during the meeting. Generally, we do this at the heels of the applicant's presentation. This will then be followed by a public comment period. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the meeting, we have them. They were sent to us earlier on. So those will not get read during the meeting, but they're already part of the public record. If you're speaking as a member of the public, please approach the podium over here, state your first and last name. And if you're a neighbor of the project, please also state your address as well. After the public comment period, staff will present their comments and recommendations. Once we hear from staff and the public, the applicant will then have a 5-minute rebuttal period to clarify anything that either the staff or the applicant said during their presentations. After hearing any responses, we will then go into board discussion, and the board discussion will then end in a vote. We post all of our results online from the meeting. Let's see, Frankie, I believe we said we've got items A1, approval of the board meeting minutes, B3, 534 King Street, B4, 55 Concord, and B13, 55 Elizabeth have all been deferred. So if any of you are here tonight for those items, you get to go home early. As a reminder now, we are an architectural review board, so please limit your comments to architecture only. We're not a zoning board. We have no say-so over anything like zoning, land use, drainage, livability issues, any of that. So please don't bring any of that stuff up because we have no say-so whatsoever about those things. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here now. And our first item on the agenda will be item B1, 414 Sumter Street. And Frankie, if you'll go ahead and give us your introduction.
414 Sumter Street is in West Side, Council District 6. It is a Category 4, circa 1930, in the historic materials demolition purview. They're requesting partial demolition, including portions of rear wall. This is the property's location on Sumter Street. Some existing site photos. Context of Sumter. And sandboard map showing the history of the structure. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Frankie.
I'm Patrick Corpus. I'm with Arlen Studio Architecture. Thank you for everybody for your time this morning, for everybody who was able to make it, and hopefully we can catch you guys up here. We are requesting partial demolition of most of the rear wall of this house. Not much of it's visible from Sumter Street. A little bit is visible from Race Street, the street behind.
Try again. Just,
There we go. Thanks. So it's easiest for me to go up here, but the rear wall up here is the wall in question. There's some nice detailing up on the eave here, but the project as a whole is an addition, a two-story addition off the back side. So in order to make it work and add the living space that the owner's needing and requesting, we need to remove the windows, the siding, the Boston hips and overhangs on the backside, and relocate the HVAC units here. As the Sanborn map's shown that Frankie just had up, the whole structure is original as shown in that 1944 Sanborn map, but they're very, very small units. It's a duplex, top and bottom unit. There's one bedroom. They consider this a bedroom, but it's really not a legal bedroom, and a living space and a small kitchen area. So in order to, again, add on to the back, we're going off the back side and need to take down some of the rear wall here. We have reached out to the neighborhood. The neighborhood seems to be very much in support of the project. And I do have a letter here from the neighborhood association, the West Side Neighborhood Association, was sent to me today, so we didn't have it in time to submit with the packet. I'm not going to read the whole thing because most of it's actually zoning type stuff. Their main concerns are parking, but overall they do support the partial demolition, and I can pass this around if you want to see it. That's all I got.
Do any of the board members have any questions of the applicant?
No.
Okay. Public speaking time. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? Okay. Frankie, do you want to give us your staff recommendations and presentation?
all right. Not flipping. Okay, we originally had thought that there was not a lot behind it, because we were writing comments based on Google. So I'm just gonna read our conditions. We would recommend retaining the corner board and limiting the demolition to the area under the eave. Our staff recommendation is approval with staff condition.
Okay. Would the applicant like to address any of those comments?
What do you mean by the eave? Exactly, what part of?
I thought you were gonna ask. Doesn't want me to zoom in. Anyway. We were just recommending keeping the rake of the roof,
Just the part on the gable or the?
just the top of the gable. and tucking
kind of
under
kinda
that.
Set that
Yeah.
down. Yeah. I do think we could potentially work with that. The issue we were having originally was the second floor is an 8-foot ceiling, so there's not a lot of manipulation there. We talked a little bit about that this morning on the site too. If I can, I'm happy to do it. I just would need to study whether or not that's actually feasible, but still getting a pitch on the roof because the pitch isn't very steep on this house. I don't know if that addresses one way or the other. It's a little bit, maybe I can, but
Understood.
and it is a nice detail, so I do appreciate trying to keep it. It didn't seem feasible when you were like, no.
Thank you. We will now go into board discussion following up with the vote.
In general, I agree with staff's recommendations. I think it is minimally visible and That generally the scope of demolition is small and appropriate, but I do agree with staff's comment about water board. And I would like to see the line of the roof survive. So the demolition then would stop at the roof line on the back wall.
I agree, and I agree with those comments.
And we can certainly prove that with the condition that the corner boards remain, that demolition stops at the existing roof line, second floor roof line.
Okay, I don't think I really have anything to add with that. I think I agree with what's been said. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve with staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for a approval of the partial demolition with the adoption of staff comment number is all staff comments?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are only two.
Okay. All right. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
I put the motion to the vote. Fillmore,
Yea in favor.
okay. Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
okay. Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
okay. Chair votes with the majority, so the motion passes unanimously. Okay. Let's see, our next application will be 383 Sumter Street. You want to frankly, please give us your introduction to the project.
383 Sumter Street is also in West Side, Council District 6. It is unrated, circa 1930 in the historic materials demolition purview. They are requesting partial demolition, including portions of siding and the rear deck. This is the property's location on Sumter. Existing site photos. Some context of Sumter. And Sanborn map showing the history of the structure. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thanks, Frankie. Patrick Corpus, Norman Studio, the architect. So again, the proposed project here is another small addition off the backside. What the demolition request is on the project is more limited to this deck area. The deck was not original to the house. It's just a wood frame deck. It was added on at some point when a rear door was added on. So we are requesting demolition of the deck itself, the door, the siding, which is a wood Dutch lap. It's the only wood Dutch lap on the building. Everything else is 1x8 wood lap siding. And that goes around the rest of the building. We are also requesting the removal of this window, the plantation shutter, and a little bit of the wall next to it to add some new windows and expand some windows in that bedroom. Now that we're getting rid of that door, we do need to have an egress window. And then there is a lantern on the wall there next to the door as well. All of the windows on this house are vinyl. We saw that this morning during the walkthrough. And the only parts of the house that are visible that we're requesting demolition on are visible from Ashley Ave, not Sumter Street.
All right, thank you. Any board members have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to speak? No? Okay. Frankie, if you would give us your staff comments and recommendations.
Okay. Oh, we just had an observation that the proposed demo is not original to the house and it's limited to the later addition, and we're recommending approval.
Would you like to
No.
address? Okay, great. Okay, we will now go into board discussion and a vote.
I have a question. The, I think, the demolition facing the building, demolition, of course, is the deck and that later addition on the side, then the back wall. Part of the way up the left-hand side, is that correct?
So, but yeah, we can follow here.
Yeah.
There's a little section right here. And then the siding and a little section of the wall and a window here. And then the siding and the door and the light along this wall. And then the whole deck. And then the window, the plantation shutter, and a little section of this wall for a new window.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. I don't believe I have anything to add to that. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Right, made by Daryl for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Becky. Okay, vote, let's see, Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
okay, Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
okay, Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
all right. Chairman votes with a majority, it passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Our next item has been deferred, 534 King Street, so we'll skip over that. Following item has also been deferred, 55 Concord Street. So our next item on the agenda will be 169 Fishbone Street.
It was withdrawn by the applicant right before the meeting.
Okay, good news. We are whipping through these things. All right. Our next one will be 38 Church Street. And Frankie, if you will give us your introduction.
38 Church Street is in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is a Category 2, circa 1820 in the Old Historic District. They are requesting a conceptual approval of hardscape alterations. This is the property's location on Church Street. Some existing site photos. Context of Church Street. Historic images. And Sanborn maps showing the history of the structures. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Spatial design, and we are proposing a landscape restoration plan for 38 Church Street. The hardscape work is restorative in nature and hardly visible from the street. As 38 Church Street is, as you can see, mostly surrounded by roughly 8-foot garden walls, with the exception of the front garden entrance that leads into the front door and the driveway. So all hardscape work being done visible from these entrances is restorative, and the hardscape material will remain in place. The only exception is at the back of the driveway. We are shrinking the footprint of the hardscape slightly. Sure. It's shrinking, and we are replacing materials with, we're repairing the tabby concrete and adding handmade brick inlay. So it will retain its historic character. I think it's just an improvement. And this project has already been reviewed and approved by April Wood. So I think it's fairly simple.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions of the applicant? Okay. Anyone speaking from the public?
I have a question. I was wondering, I live on at 48 Church,
Yes.
and I've seen these giant dumpsters in front of that house.
Mhm.
And there used to be a swimming pool back there, and these dumpsters are huge, and you've got tons of concrete
Mhm.
that you've been disposing of.
Yes.
So where's
this-
that on the
Ma'am,
former?
Can you approach the podium?
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
We're going into this public comment period
Okay.
now. And state your name and
Sure.
address, please.
My name's Maria Collins. I live at 48 Church Street. And I'm just wondering, where the former pool was in that application. There have been at least 2 giant dumpsters where they've been demoing the former pool. And wondering where that was and if there's gonna be any more of these huge messes. I mean, there's tons of stuff.
Right.
That they've gotten rid of. And I'm worried about this street. It's a brick street and I'm worried about it cracking up. We have, the clay pipes. And I was just wondering how that was addressed or if it was addressed.
Thank you. Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Can. So the residents are also doing a renovation on their home, and they are updating the pool. So the dumpsters are likely that we have not begun work. Outdoor spatial design has not begun any work. So that would not be us. I would assume that it would be a result of the house renovation and the pool is being demolished, but that has been approved and permitted already by Aqua Blue Pools, so that is also not in our scope. That's all.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Cold in here, so I'm April Wood with Historic Charleston Foundation. We holds an easement on 38 Church Street. The owners are doing an excellent job rehabbing their historic house and designing a garden that fits in with their home while also retaining older plants. We've reviewed the application and the proposed landscape plan conforms to the requirements of the easement. We respectfully recommend approval of this application. Thank you. And the pool is going back in the same place where the previous pool was.
Thank you, April. Anyone else? Okay. Frankie, would you go ahead and give us your staff comments and recommendations?
Okay, staff just had 2 observations. One is that it is a category 2 in the architecture inventory. And so any alterations have to be approved by the board, which is why it is here tonight. And that we appreciate the applicant's attention to detail and thoroughness. We are recommending approval.
Thank you, Frankie. I guess no clarifications or rebuttal on this. Okay. All right. That concludes the applicant presentation, public comment period. Go into board discussion now.
I didn't have any comments or questions. Did you,
Okay.
Fillmore?
No, I didn't. I mean, it's probably nice, a very nice plan.
Yeah.
I don't have any issues with the plan. I'm trying to remember that. Trying to remember when the other restoration came before the board. I'm trying to remember.
I may have
It's
predated
just,
you.
it's probably in my memory somewhere. I just don't remember. Okay. And so it's, I don't think it's any problem. I have no objection to it, though, to the landscape plan at all. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, to me, it seemed like a nicely, well thought out, detailed plan and good quality materials. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah. For approval of the bid.
right, we've got a motion on the floor for, conceptual approval. Do you want to do conceptual or final? Final or conceptual? They're asking for conceptual.
Yeah, conceptual.
Okay. Conceptual approval as submitted with final review by staff of permit drawings. Okay. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Daryl. Okay, put it to vote. Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
okay, Daryl,
Yay in favor.
and Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
okay. Chair votes with the majority, so the application passes unanimously. Right, let's see what's up next. Our next item is 7 Montague Court. And Frankie, if you'll give us your introduction.
70 Montague is in Charleston Village, Council District 8. It is unrated, circa 1880 in the Old and Historic District. They are requesting conceptual approval for alteration to existing rear addition. That is indicating the wrong one. It is further down here. Sorry, Montague Court or Montague Street. Google kept messing up. Is the property down here? Let's go ahead and move on to the applicant because we've got the wrong contact in there. I'm sorry, Julie.
That's fine. Hi, I'm Julie O'Connor. I'm the designer on this project. So this is a sweet little house of about 830 square feet. Down on Montague Court, which familiar is sort of a little driveway, Montague. This house is built in 1880. There is a 1-story addition on the back of the house, which is where we're doing our work. That was, doesn't show up on Sanborn, so it's post 1955. My client Kathleen bought this house in 2015 and has really loved it, but just needs just the tiniest little bit of extra space. So we were asking for a 25 square foot addition. That's about 16 inches deep. And runs the length of this little addition in the back, 1-story addition in the back, just give a little bit of breathing room to the bathroom and kitchen space. And so we feel like it's a modest revision on this house. It is, again, just at the end of this little tiny street, and so visibility is pretty minimal. We do have a zoning approval variance for this addition as well, and the support of all of the neighbors and the neighborhood. So I'm here for questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Is the reason you did that at an angle because that's what it took to get a 3-foot clear egress through between the post and the addition?
The angle?
The angle, yeah, why?
I'm sorry, which angle?
That's the dimension.
It's on the floor plan. It says.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's just the dimension line showing 3 feet. The addition's not at an angle,
I
it's
see.
just the dimension line just to say, you can get through here.
I see. Never mind.
Yeah, no problem.
My question.
Anything else? Do we have anyone speaking from the public? No? Okay. Frankie, if you'll give us your staff comments and recommendations.
We just had the observation that the proposed alteration does protrude further than the original structure, but due to the structure's location on the property, it's the only place for an alteration, and that the proposed addition is very minimal. Staff recommendation is conceptual approval with final review by staff of permit documents.
Okay, Julie, anything? Okay. All right, we will now go into board discussion, a vote.
I mean, it's unfortunate that it comes out, well, a little past the line of the house, and it's certainly unfortunate that it's imposed, it really imposes itself on that porch. But it's not very visible, and there's not much space back there.
mean, I have trouble with it protruding path. I mean, the way the loss of the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, typically, we like to see a transition, at least a reveal or a something to maintain that corner. So, I mean, I would prefer to see the maintenance of the, even if it's, you know, we've even done small reveal where that corner is maintained, and then it bumps back out.
It looks like the bump out is pretty much like a counter depth bump out. So I'm wondering if maybe with a little bit of whittling down of what's happening on that side, like I noticed, I think the dishwasher and sink is on that side, maybe whittle down to, it's a 1-bedroom house, maybe whittle down to maybe an 18-inch dishwasher, smaller single bowl sink. If you, that could even be treated as kind of a bay almost instead of, that way you would have sort of a break in that plane, kind of separating it from the main house. Anything else?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, I get it, but it's so small and there's such a little bit of space to work with. And it's a little awkward, but the house is 800 square feet and
Very tiny.
if I think what you're asking is there's another little indention and then it comes out. It's just not that wide to begin with, so I wouldn't struggle with proving it. That's just me personally. It's just such a small addition to create a niche.
And if I may, it is not visible. I mean, you just can't get away from the house enough to see it. It's the very end of the court. Sorry, I know I'm speaking out of turn, but
It is at the dead end of the court. I think there's only one more house after that.
No, I visited.
Yeah, I did too. I did too. I went by there too, and it really is not, it's not very visible, and certainly what the goal is to get a 24-inch counter in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could theoretically, you know, put a notch in it, but I don't know what you do with it on the
Right.
interior when you did that.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure,
There-
and I don't think you can go back.
Well, no, we deal with it all the time.
Hmm?
We deal with it all the time creatively.
I mean, I don't know if you can, I don't think you can make that little addition any longer. I didn't look at- I'm assuming you couldn't go back 24 inches there.
You take the back of the house back more.
Yeah, take the addition back.
Do you want to speak to that,
Pick it up on
Jill?
the other side.
is that a question?
Mhm.
Yes, you know, we'd have to get a zoning variance to extend
Yeah.
this and that is the garden wall and that is the property line that you can see on that drawing right there. And so, you know, of course, with zoning, you know, we'd have to go back to the zoning board. And we already, you know, have been to them.
Also, if you look at the, existing south elevation, that long shed roof is already a little awkward. So that would be more reason for me to not worry about it personally. I certainly understand the offsets and the connection pieces though.
Julie, just out of curiosity, do you think that rear ski slope was original one?
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, the roof, yeah.
Yeah, in the Sanborn, it's a
Yeah.
1-story.
Oh, okay.
So you can see in the Sanborn, there's a 2-story section and a 1-story section. So, you know, where the piazza, you know, where you're going to the porch is the original section of the house. And then the addition that we're talking about was new, or well, at post 1955. But it was a 2-story section and a 1-story section in the Sanborn. It's crazy.
It is a peculiar little
Yeah, and that
house.
room is vaulted.
Okay.
It's
All right.
it's a sweet little house.
Yeah,
It
just
really
curious.
is. It's
Okay.
adorable.
All right. Do we have some sort of consensus? Would someone like to make a motion or?
I'll make a motion to approve it as is.
Okay, do we have a second? would someone else like to make a motion?
I mean, I think, I'm struggling with this a little bit because I certainly see the point that it's more difficult to try to preserve that corner. But I wonder if there's a way to do that and still get that little bit of extra space in there. Just give it sort of a second look. So, I would float a motion to defer. In order to consider a design that preserves back left corner of the story structure.
Does that mean, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does that mean it can't go out then?
No, I'm not saying it can't go out there. I'm saying defer for an opportunity to investigate a way to preserve the corner of the historic structure. Let's not cover the corner up. Maybe there's a way to take a second look at it and come up with an ingenious mechanism for doing that.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting how we design it. Job to design. So that's a motion.
We have a new motion on the floor by Fillmore. Let's see, deferral in order to investigate the possibilities for preserving that rear corner of the building. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Okay, seconded by Becky. All right, Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
okay. And Daryl,
No.
and Becky,
Yay in favor.
okay. Sharon votes yay with the motion. Motion passes 3-1. Next item is 10 Limehouse Street. And if you would give us your introduction.
10 Limehouse Street is in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is the category 2, circa 1858 in the Old New York District, requesting to change the roof material to a standing seam copper roof from a slate roof. This is the property's location on Limehouse Street. Existing site photos. Context of Limehouse. Historic images. And Sanborn map showing the history of the property. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Frankie. Good evening. My name is Eddie Taylor with Eager Taylor Architects. This is my proposal with my office as well. We are representing Megan Jordan Phillips, the owners of 10 Limehouse, and y'all, with the exception of Mr. Turner, saw this at the last meeting. And for his benefit and those in the audience, I'll just run through it quickly. But the property is one that I personally have known for many years since I've been in Charleston, 30 plus years, and I knew the lady that had taken care of it as her property, but couldn't afford to put it back together. And in 2018, kind of matchmaked her with the Phillipses, who were willing to turn the property around and do a total meticulous restoration and renovation of the property and make it their family home, which is what they did. And at the time, and as long as I've known the house, it did not have a roof on it. There were remnants of some old slate in the yard that Shirley, who was the owner, had said was there. And when the Phillipses went to restore it with the best of intentions, went back to what they had understood was the yard that had supplied some of that slate or best could, and it was in Virginia. It was a very thin slate and lightweight, and it's been on the house for 6 years. Needless to say, not original. None of the original was there able to be used. But over these past 6 years, it's been falling and breaking, and had confirmed Cahill, who was the installer at the time and supper contractors built it. You know, the installation, it's been looked at, it's not that, it's just the slate is extremely thin and brittle. So what we've been up against is trying to see if there was a way to replace it. And the question was, could we go back with copper, which was well received at the last meeting, but with the caveat that we needed to make sure, and we have an engineer look at the existing truss configuration, that the load that as we had anticipated could not be handled by a thicker slate. So we did do that. We spoke to Cahill and got the slate loads, and what is presently on there is 700 to 800 pounds per square. And to go to the thicker slate, which is 3/4 to an inch, is anywhere from 2,340 to 3,275 pounds per square. So it's a significant load increase. With that, we also had the engineer, as requested by the board at the last meeting, take a look at what we had photograph wise, but furthermore, go back behind the knee wall, which is non-supporting, the restored spaces or the finished spaces as they exist presently on the bottom of that run of photos that we had prior to the work beginning and as it began on the top and the middle. You can see that as Ms. Platts at the time, the roof was failing because it had been just tar paper for ages, as long as she known it, 30+ years. But we did get back behind there, and the roof rafters in the letters that we handed out to you that have been provided to the board as well by our staff by Technica said they were 2.5 inches wide, 8.5 inches deep, 20 inches on center, and the knee locations were non-supported. Again, the analyzing the roof framing for the full 3/4 inch thickness of dead loads, which would be approximately 2,340 pounds per square. The engineer was very adamant that he felt that would stress the rafters to their maximum, and deflections, and beyond the limits allowable for residential construction. For those reasons, as you see in that note, and just for the benefit of the public, he said Technica does not recommend the addition of what would amount to almost 3 times the current dead load on the roof in the form of a full 3/4 inch thickness slate material, especially if other lighter materials exist and are available for these historic structures. So at our last meeting, the request from the board was to get that documentation, and I think again, the board was supportive but needed that to confirm such. So respectfully request y'all's approval so they could replace this. The other thing which I neglected to mention this time, but I did want to say, because it was not insignificant, what triggered this for the owners, more so than appearance, cost, any of those things, because they're able to deal with that, was presently it's literally a safety issue. For the past 5 or 6 years, they've been falling off at a rate that's been worrisome to them, and just more recently they found them in their yard, as per some of those photos, that are just kind of embedded in the yard. She has young children, and that's not, you know, a stretch that the life safety concern was not insignificant at what triggered this analysis for us here. So, and we had neighbors that have submitted letters for the prior submission that I think on file with you too. Thank you.
So Eddie, it's more of an issue of the tiles are breaking and not the fasteners. That's right. Okay.
Yes, so they're literally breaking in. What it went back as a thin slate, which was similar to some of the remnants that were in the yard when we got it. And that may have been the way it always was, but they're just literally breaking in the middle, falling down, sliding off. And because sometimes we'll see still the fasteners there with the nail hole and they haven't moved.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The engineer's report
Yes, sir.
references 3/4 inch thick slate. Is there a reason you started with that as a reference for the calculations, 3/4 inch thick?
Well, we were bumping up from the 3/16 quarter that we had now. So it's the load reference that he used, Fillmore, was the 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, which was 2,300.
Yeah, yeah, the report said reference 3/4 inch thick slate and, that's unusual.
Yes, sir.
Um,
What he was referencing, and again.
And I think his calculations are correct for 3/4 inch slate. I'm not questioning.
No,
that.
sir,
I'm wondering why 3/4 inch was the starting.
Yes, sir. I think what he's referencing, if you have that Cahill letter in your portfolio as well,
I do, I saw that.
you do the 1/2 inch to 3/4 is 2340. So that's the number he's referencing.
Yeah. Okay. It's 3/4 inch slate would be highly unusual.
Yes,
I mean, standard roofing slate in a range of 3/16. Standard roofing slate is in a range of 3/16 to 1/4 for fairly thin, 1/4 to 3/8, and 3/8 is sort of at the top of the normal range. And it would generally be used for a slate where you were trying to achieve texture, and the thickness would be there for the texture. I just thinking back, I find it difficult to recall ever seeing 3/4 inch thick slate on a roof in Charleston. There could be one. That would be every one. I was just curious, that seems like an unusual starting point for the calculations. So.
The information that he was supplied by the roofer showed the 1/2 inch to 3/4. So the 1/2 inch thickness to the 3/4 had that weight range. So that's the weight range he was referencing.
I have a
Thank you.
question. Eddie, what is the thickness of the slate that's on there now?
We have, it's roughly 3/16 to 1/4, so it's quite thin.
Okay.
It's the lower range, again, is referenced in Mr. Cahill's letter there is what they used.
Anything else? No. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Okay. Any members from the public would like to speak? April?
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF is in agreement with the applicant that the existing slate roof should be replaced due to concerns outlined in the application, and after speaking with the applicant, we applaud the excellent stewardship of this historic house, and we are truly sympathetic to the applicant's situation. It is difficult not to be aligned with an applicant who has such a demonstrated preservation ethic and who has done an exceptional job in the rehabilitation of their historic home. But we want to be on the record that we are concerned about the proposed use of copper as the replacement roof material at 10 Limehouse Street. Our reasons are as follows. Although copper is a good quality material, historically copper would not have been used in Charleston at the time of construction of 10 Limehouse Street. The replacement of the slate roof with copper does not meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. The standards state deteriorated historic structures shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Copper does not conform to this standard. The roof at 10 Limehouse is very highly visible. Installing a copper roof will change the historic character of the house and set a precedent for other slate roofs being replaced. And as the engineer report states, the roof structure cannot support the full load of the thick slate. We suggest exploring alternate slate materials or potentially even another product called Ludo slate. While not a real slate, the BAR Large recently approved Ludo slate at the Silcox Gym for similar reasons. We respectfully recommend denial of this application in favor of further study of appropriate roofing materials. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, that concludes our public comment period. Frankie, would you like to give us your staff comments and recommendations?
Staff just had observations that the report did confirm that it will not support the weight of 3/4 inch slate, and we also observed that the 1/4 inch slate is the typical thickness for roofing. But we wanted the board to discuss if they felt the report concern addressed their concerns, and we're struggling with the thickness of slate, and we just didn't feel like we knew enough about the material.
Thank you, Frankie. Eddie, would you like to address anything?
Yes, please. Appreciate the concerns and the comments and those particularly of Historic Charleston Foundation, because we've spoken with them. But we're just really concerned about doing anything that was artificial, or any new system that hasn't been tried. And the other element associated with the fact that there wasn't any of that slate on this building to begin with, and this wasn't original. We felt carried, some of this as well, that was an important factor. And that the copper, in our opinion, just would not be inappropriate to this type of house. So understand, and I just reference again, I know it keeps coming up as a 3/4 inch slate, but that is a relationship to the numbers that were provided by Cahill based on the weight range of what that was. So anywhere between that was what it was, but it wasn't capable of supporting even close to that. Mike, you had a comment about what you said Cahill said.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying, when I spoke to Cahill Roofing, so they're the ones obviously that installed the current slate, which is 3/16 to 1/4 inch. And their concern was they wanted to go up to a minimum of a 1/2 inch, basically just because they don't want to have the same issues that they're having right now. They want to use a similar slate product. Their concern is that the reason that it is cracking is due to the thickness, due to the fact that it's thinner. And so they referenced 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch slate. That's what they recommended to go back to. That's what we followed.
And that's the weight range that the engineer used.
Eddie, how long has slate been on the roof? For 100 years? And how long has it been a slate roof? Not necessarily that particular slate, but.
To be honest, Mr. Cobb, I don't know when it came off. I know when I was in Charleston, I got back in the early 90s, it didn't have a roof on it. And as long as I knew the prior owner, it was always tar paper. That's all she had. So.
April, do you have any idea or an opinion on the original roof material?
If it was a slate roof historically, but it has not had a roof for as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
Decades.
We did confirm in the earthquake report that it was a slate roof. Because we were looking to see if the original material was copper, then staff could support or even approve themselves a copper replacement.
Eddie, is it just the, as far as being able to support the weight, is it just a problem with the deflection of the rafters, or does it go deeper than that?
No, I think it's twofold. It's certainly that, which is most significant in our part of the engineers and that of the roofers, because they wouldn't warranty it if it wasn't a thicker, like they stated in this application. So the owner was concerned about that, but not an understatement that they were concerned about life safety. Like I said, the reason I was first called over there, and evidently it's been going on for 5 or 6 years since they had the house. They just called a contractor in Cahill. I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't something that was like, fire alarm status. But as it kept repeating itself and falling into the yard, she and her neighbor were very concerned that something falls and hits somebody. And that according to the engineer and the roofer and the contractor, that they needed the thicker of something of some weight to be able to, I guess, substantiate the fact that maybe it wouldn't slide or break, which is what's happening now. It's just breaking because it's so thin. And that they couldn't do that without it being a thicker. So the owner wanted it, first and foremost, quite honestly, from a life safety standpoint, because she didn't do it. Secondly, probably equally as important is when we looked into it, it just couldn't support the weight with what's there, what they would require us to put back.
So just simply going in and sistering would accomplish what you need.
Not necessarily, and again, I know cost is not a factor, but they do have that whole space finished. Oh, sorry, I'm going too far presently. So just so there's no confusion on those photos. Sorry, Frankie, that's not. No.
It's all good. Where would you like it to be?
The one with photographs. Yes, thank you very much. So the lower level, they have all that space finished, and it almost would render it unusable if they did do that. So it's not to say that those options weren't discussed, I promise you, before we came this way. It's just this is where we landed.
Okay, okay, thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that concludes our period of public comments and rebuttal. I'd like to go into board discussion now.
I'll start. I'm certainly sympathetic that if that's like with 3/16, that's sort of at the bottom end of roofing slate. I mean, roofing slate generally classified as 3/16 to 3/8. 3/16 to quarter is considered fairly light. Quarter to 3/8 in that range is considered sort of medium. 3/8 is considered thick, and generally used when you're looking to have a textured slate. Can't put half, there is 1/2-inch slate. The slate manufacturers don't produce 3/4-inch roofing slate because nobody is putting 3/4-inch roofing slate on a roof. It's so thick and heavy. And 1/2-inch, yes, but not normally. When I looked up and started looking at slate suppliers, most of them stop at 3/8. Some of them go to 1/2-inch. 2340 that's in the engineer's report is for 3/4. I ran the numbers. It's for 3/4-inch thick slate, not 1/2-inch slate. And I sympathize with the fact that that slate's breaking, and they are probably going to have to replace that roof because if it's 3/16, it's pretty thin, and properly installed, even 3/16 will hold up a long time. But you get people on the roof, up there painting or doing anything, and 3/16 slate breaks really easily and falls off. What troubles me is that instead of looking at a starting point that seemed more appropriate for a historic slate roof in Charleston, which I think this house has always had, some that think this house has ever had a metal roof on it, and certainly not a copper roof. That starting with 2,340 pounds per square, which is 3/4-inch slate, is kind of skipping other appropriate possibilities that roof might support. My instinct is that when that house was built in 1850, that the slate was probably close to 3/8 of an inch, the original slate that was on it. And so it probably weighed 1,100 pounds per square. But I struggle a little bit with that as the starting point. I think that more investigation would need to be done to determine if there is, there are 1/4 to 3/8 inch slate roofs all over Charleston that are performing very well. Unless somebody's up there beating on them, they're not falling off, and they're not coming down on people's heads. And so I just think that there's been a step skipped here that would be appropriate. And I love copper roofs, but I don't think the copper roof is the right roof for this house.
From my perspective, in 2018, when they renovated this house, I guess they could have shored up the rafters then and put a thicker slate on. But since then, they've finished off the space, and cost keeps coming into play. And I'm new to the board, but the last board meeting, we looked at a house on Line Street, and the second floor had fallen in and the roof had fallen in, and we're asking them to build it back exactly how it was. So the argument of it's going to be expensive is a tough one to swallow. But I still think you could, and it would not be easy, you would have to take the drywall down and get an engineer involved and shore up the rafters and put a thicker slate. And I think that problem goes away, is my perspective. And also, there's a building right across the street that's a brick building, and it has a slate roof too. And I don't know if that's considered a sister building or not, but they really complement each other. I was looking at it yesterday in the rain,
Yeah.
and I thought it just would be disappointing to see that go away.
And I think that to your point, that's true about the roof, but it also might be if you go back and look at 3/8 slate, which is a very durable slate roof. And I think would very likely solve the problem that they're experiencing, which is the 3/16 slate is cracking, breaking, sliding off the roof. It's not that the slate roof leaks, it's not that it's damaging the house, it's just that thin 3/16 slate is not holding up. That roof as framed, if you run the numbers on that, that roof might support it without being reinforced. I don't know that, but that hasn't been looked at yet. And I think that's a step that is reasonable to take in these circumstances.
As all these buildings age, if the arguments, it doesn't support it anymore, then the whole fabric of Charleston will change over the next X amount of years.
Yeah.
Just because of the costs, so.
Right. So I would defer this to look at other slate options that would be appropriate and achieve the safety level they want. Like I said, they're 3/8, it's like a quarter to 3/8 thick slate roofs all over Charleston that are performing well. So, but so I think I would support a deferral for further investigation.
I tend to agree with what's been said this evening. I personally would not like to see what was used on the Silcox building. I mean, it's from the street, it looks dead on slate, but I think this house is an awful big gamble to experiment on with a synthetic slate roof. And philosophically, is it better to have a faux slate roof, which is completely synthetic material, or a copper roof, which is a natural material? Obviously my first pick would be to go back with the slate, which it was originally slated, should be slate. But I would rule out the synthetic slate altogether.
Right, I'm not suggesting that.
Okay.
That would be an option. I think that there may be other natural slate options that might solve this problem. I'm not sure about that, but I think that investigating that step has been skipped. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Am I hearing a motion?
I will make a motion for deferral to investigate additional slate products that would be suitable for the roof.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Fillmore for a deferral until such time additional slate thicknesses, what you would say?
Well, yeah, or additional slate products, its thickness is certainly.
Okay, additional slate products to deferral with the condition to investigate additional slate products for the roof replacement.
I don't want to limit their options too much.
Okay. Okay, I get that then. Okay. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, Becky seconds it. All right, let's put this to a vote. Fillmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
and chair votes with a majority. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank y'all. Have a good holiday.
Our next item on the agenda is 54 Market Street. Frankie, can you get your introduction?
No, 494 King.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip over one?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll go with that one.
494 King Street is in East Side Council District 4. It is a category, that date is wrong. Category 3 in the Old Historic District. They are requesting conceptual approval for new illuminated sign and mural. This is the property's location on King Street. Existing site photos. Some context of King Street. Historic photos, of the property. And sandboard map showing the history of the structure. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Hello, I'm Alexis. We're with Charleston Sign. We're helping Kohler at 494 King Street with their signage. The sign package is proposing halo lit letters, a blade sign, and a mural. The halo lit letters proposed on the front facade will be a soft glow around the letters, not a hard face lit sign. At night to help with better exposure, and customers can find them easier in the evening. For the side mural that's proposed, is going on the side will have more visibility and helps Kohler advertise a little better, but still keeps the historic feel with the building and the other murals around the area.
All right, well, thank you. Do any board members have any questions?
No.
Anyone from the public like to speak? Okay. All right, Frankie, if you would give us your staff comments and recommendations.
Okay, I did have the date incorrect. We did confirm that the date was pre-1884. This is technically an appeal of a staff decision. In November, we denied the permit that was applied for due to eliminated signage, the mural on unpainted brick, and having 3 sign types on King Street. And then the file after that is just the reasons for those denials. Since this is an appeal of staff decision, we don't have a recommendation other than that we have previously denied it per our policies and Secretary of Interior standards.
All right, thank you, Frankie. Would the applicant like to address staff's comments?
Pretty much, I mean, like I said, we're just trying to keep. They were just, pretty much what I said with the mural. They just figured it'd be more visible on that side and help them advertise better. And then I know that the Morris Focal Furniture Store around there has, I think it's the next street over, has a mural as well, and they're kind of just trying to keep that same type of feel with that. The halo lit letters will just be like, it's reverse channel letters, so it'd actually be lit back on the building to make it like glow around the letters. So it's not really like a harsh light. It's just so it's kind of better visibility for them at night and then the evening.
Right. Actually, I do have one question. There's where the halo letters are going, there's a sort of a band around that portion there. I can't tell if it's a raised band or if it's a rounded band. It doesn't show up on this, but if you go to either the photo or if you have to go to the photo, Frank.
Sorry, I went the wrong way.
I don't think you can zoom in or not, but my question is, your design doesn't distinguish whether or not your letters are fitting within that recessed band or if it's taking up that entire space there. Wish we had a close-up photo of it. So.
I can try to zoom in. I don't think I can zoom in as much as you want. Yeah, it's gonna get blurry after that.
You can see the bottom of the band and at the arch at the bottom. But anyway, that goes all the way around that area. It's just does the Kohler fit within that band, or are you taking up that entire space from pilaster to pilaster?
I believe how we would install it would fit inside the recess area. You can kind of see it on the drawing, I think, that dotted line. Very faint, but the dotted line around it, I think that's representing
The inside of the trim band.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? We will now go into more discussion.
I mean,
Well, just to
the rule is
clarify,
2 of 3.
The rule is 2 of 3 and the illuminated is not allowed, right? Not permitted, right?
It is. I put it in that condition. It's external or internal generally will not be permitted. Staff doesn't have the authority to approve illumination, but you as a board do.
What generally the rule of thumb we've gone by in the past is on King Street is if it's a business that is open generally at night, such as a restaurant or a bar, we entertain internal illumination, illumination period. If it is just simply a daytime business, we don't. There's, because the purpose of signage on King Street is not to have 24/7 advertisement. It is to help patrons find a business that's open at night. So that's always been sort of the logic behind lit signage on King Street.
And we have approved, over the last few years, we've approved several, modestly, sensitively lighted signs for businesses that are open after dark.
But in this case, I don't believe this would be an after dark.
Store, this would not be an after dark.
Right.
Really, even within sort of how we view the exception, this lighted sign wouldn't be approved. Lighting it and 3 out, it's 2 out of 3. I don't think we've ever kind of overruled
No.
that.
No.
That mandate that you can have
Yeah.
2 out of 3 choices.
Yeah,
And you don't get all 3.
And
So
to me, the painted wall sign on the side, to me, I mean, that's definitely a sign. You cannot consider that a mural because it does contain the name of the business. And I think that is it's pretty excessive and it's very much precedent setting. And generally, you do not paint historic masonry.
Girls are on other services, not on unpainted historic brick.
So the illuminated sign is something that normally isn't approved.
Right.
And the sign on the brick is something that's definitely not approved.
Generally, yes.
And then, of course, the sign ordinance is, you can have 2 out of the 3 choices.
Okay.
But certainly, painting historic brick goes into another category.
Right.
That is a pretty sound violation of Department of Interior standards. And so I would move to deny that. Uphold staff's denial of lighted sign and the painted sign on the historic brick.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Fillmore. Motion being to uphold the staff's denial against both the lighting of the King Street facade sign and also the denial of the painted sign on the, I guess that would be the northern side of the building. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Becky, second. Go to a vote. Fillmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl,
You in favor?
Becky,
Yay in favor.
and chair votes with the majority, passes unanimously. Okay. Now it will be 54 North Market Street.
Yes, sir.
All right, Frankie.
54 North Market Street is in Council District 8. It is a category 4. Tax records dated it to 1978. We have since gotten further. It is in the Old and Historic District, and they're requesting conceptual approval for new rooftop alteration. This is the property's location on Market Street. Some existing site photos. Some context of Market Street. Historic photos from the architecture inventory. And sandboard map showing the history of the structure. And I will turn it over to the applicant. Oh, it's not-
My name is Clark Batchelor with Duffy and Associates. Excuse my voice. It's cold weather's probably gotten to me a little bit. This is a submittal in response to the September 12th denial of after the fact improvements on the rooftop. So this essentially our response is that the rooftop elements that were not approved will be taken down, and that these essentially what we're calling cupolas on either side of the roof that we're proposing. One is for the stair that's in the whiskey room that goes up to the roof. And the other is a satellite bar, are greatly pushed back from both sides of the street, at least 17 feet. So we feel that with sightlines that we've provided and basically the location of the designed cupolas and the angle of the roof slope and how they're positioned away from the streets, that these will not be visible. And you can see that we've highlighted in red on this sheet the areas that will be taken down, and then on the right, the areas that we are proposing for a new rooftop stair access and satellite bar. And then, I don't know if this works, or if we can just go to the elevation sheets.
Sorry, once I zoom in on one, it messes up the clicker and everything.
So the top is the existing and the bottom is the proposed. And so you can see we're greatly reducing that rooftop structure that was denied back in September and pushing everything back off the parapet wall. Next one, please. Same thing proposes on the bottom with the sight line showing the distance back from where you'd have to stand to see these structures and how we're angling the roofs in the correct direction down towards the street, essentially. You know, we've provided some 3D views so you can also see this in perspective. Proposing everything on the rooftop now is white. We're proposing to go back with a white to keep it light and make it fade away. Next page, I think there's a few perspectives. Actually, here's a section showing that the main stair cupola essentially that we've designed, setting it back off the parapet in both directions. Just simple construction on that to match the other elements on that roof. Next page, please. There'll be some 3D perspectives. And then the last page is essentially an aerial. You get a better understanding of how these elements are being introduced. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Clark. Any questions of the applicant? I think you two guys weren't here when this came before us before, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, Clark, just for clarification, the two chimneys are being restored to their original height?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that in the presentation, but yes, in our response, the chimneys will be back to the original height.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you. You have anyone for the public that would like to speak? No? All right, Frankie, why don't you give us your staff comments and recommendations?
We just had observations that the configuration of the existing and proposed features has been adjusted to be minimally visible from the public right of way, and the existing staircase has been relocated. And also that the chimneys have been returned to their previous appearance. Staff is recommending a conceptual approval with a final review by staff of permit documents.
Thank you, Frankie. Clark, would you like to speak anything to the staff's comments? No? Nope. Okay. All right, we'll go into board discussion and a vote.
I was here when it came before, and changes certainly have made it less visible. Which there are positive changes in that direction. I, of course, generally opposed to top opinion design storage structures, but I think probably this thing is too far down the road at this point. And you know, I just sort of went down the Morgan Grove route today and looked at it, and there are, you know, I don't think there are any other rooftop bars on the north side on North Market. There's certainly two you could, you know, easily visible on the south side. So I think, you know, that ship has sailed as far as the rooftop bar situation is, which is what's driving all this. Obviously, a bar.
Yeah,
So I mean, I think that pretty much as I struggle with stuff like this, in this location, some bars sort of the norm, becoming the norm. And these changes certainly are positive, I think, compared to what was presented before. So,
but there
I'm
was
not sitting here a little undecided, but I'm undecided.
Sounds like you're warming up to it to me.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it's probably a little.
But wasn't there some sort of a activity on the roof prior to this previous working going on as far as a use, a rooftop use?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a
So this is not,
there's been a rooftop bar up there for a while.
yeah, so this is not a new thing as far as that use goes.
Yeah, the issue was the stair cupola along Hanson Street.
Yeah.
That was built on top of the parapet.
Right.
Without approval.
Which backing that off has made a huge difference. It really has. That was the most egregious thing right there. I think I mean, in my opinion, the applicants addressed the board's previous concerns pretty well.
Yeah. I have to admit this is much better. Okay, before.
And a lot of what you see up there is pre-existing clutter.
Right.
Mechanical units and all.
Oh, there's all kinds of.
I mean, when you look at this in elevation, you're seeing a lot of stuff that was already there. Would someone like to make a motion?
Just stepping in the middle of this, but I'd make a motion to approve it
As submitted?
as submitted.
Okay.
If nobody has any real comments.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for a conceptual approval. As submitted with final review by staff of permit drawings.
Our recommendation, yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Fillmore seconds. All right, Fillmore. All right, Daryl,
In favor?
Becky.
Yeah, in favor.
Okay, I vote yay also. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Clark. All right, our next one on the agenda is 645 East Bay Street. Frankie, would you give us your introduction?
645 East Bay Street is in East Side, Council District 4. It is new construction in the Old City District. They are requesting conceptual approval 4-story mixed-use building with a carriage house in the rear. This is the property's location on East Bay Street. Existing site. Some context of East Bay Street. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Hi, I'm Sean Carlin, Carlin Architecture Studio. So this is an existing pocket lot infill adjacent to a lawyer's building on the left and then the newer construction to the right. It's about 32 feet wide and I think 150, 160 feet long. So contextually, it fits more further down the peninsula in the size and scale of the lot than it does at this point. As you transition from downtown to the neck. So we tried to keep the massing of the brick portion of the building more towards the typical proportions and detailing of the buildings as you go down Meeting, King, and East Bay. But because this is kind of that transitional point between the historic peninsula and the neck where you have some more large-scale modern building, we took that mass, the 2-story mass above is stepped back from that 2-story, or from the base building, and it's a more modern material and articulation, kind of giving this building both a historic context, but also kind of a transitional ode to Morrison Yard and some of the newer construction projects that are happening further up the neck. And there's kind of a little portico share entrance for the vehicles to get back, and then a carriage house in the back corner of the property. While it's vacant now, previously there was a house situated on the front right corner, similar to where the building is now, and a garage placed in the back left corner, approximate to the general location of where that garage building is placed currently.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions? I do have one question. Your top 2 floors.
Yes.
What are your floor ceiling heights in those? Do you know off the top of your head?
So the lower one, I believe, was 8 feet. At max, it's 9.
Okay.
Where you have, so there's a 2-story piece at the front
Mhm.
that's open, and then the back where you have the actual floor system, it's either 8 or 9. It wasn't anything major or grand. And then above, I think at that back plate, it's about 7.5, if I remember correctly.
All right, so nothing.
Tried to minimize it as much as possible.
Thank you.
I have a question too. What is the exterior material of it? Is that concrete or is it?
So currently, it's like a Nichiha panel, like a rain screen,
Okay,
some cement board panel system.
okay.
All right. Any comments from the public?
Laurel Fay with the Preservation Society of Charleston. While the PSC is not opposed to creative modern infill at this site, this proposal is not compatible with its context and requires further study. The exaggerated upper stories reflect an atypical massing approach that results in awkward proportions and makes the building feel out of scale with its surroundings. Further, the proposed driveway and entry configuration do not create a positive pedestrian experience or strong streetscape presence. We do, however, appreciate the high-quality materials and details shown at the conceptual level, as well as the precedent projects cited, which are recent Carolopolis Award winners, and exemplify compatible modern design and historic contexts. We encourage the applicant to continue studying these references, but as submitted, ask that this proposal be denied for height, scale, mass, and architectural direction. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All right, Frankie, will you give us your staff comments and recommendations?
I've had some observations first. One, the proposal has permeable pavers, which are desirable for the Bay Area policy for hardscaping, but the majority of the lot is hardscaping, and per our same policy statement, paving should be limited to minimal required for driveway and reasonable amount of recreational uses. The proposed elevation is also very busy. Each floor seems to be compositionally different. Staff conditions for approval would be to unify the East Bay Street facade into more cohesive composition. To clarify that material of the top mass, we also felt like it was rendered as though it was concrete block, but did see the notation of Nichiha. We also said that if a composite material, is to be used, it should not appear to be masonry. Per BAR principles for new construction, the authenticity of Charleston should be supported by the use of materials that are authentic in their appearance and function. We also think that the top portion of the structure needs to feel lighter than it does at current. Staff recommendation is a deferral for restudy of east facade with staff condition.
All right, we will now go into board discussion. I'm sorry, would you like to respond to any of the staff's comments? Okay, okay, we'll now go into board discussion. I might start this one out. I do agree with Frankie about the site is more or less being consumed by paving. The pervious paving is a good thing, but I would like to see some more green space introduced on the site in the back areas. What I see here is that it is a modern building, but it is using very traditional materials other than the Nichiha. If you look at its proportions and minus the top two floors, the proportions somewhat mimic the building to its left of its closest bay to this one, and it somewhat mimics the bays of the larger building to its right. So, for me, it's as far as the height scale mass of it, it's kind of wrapped up in the top two floors and not the main body of the building is what I'm seeing. I do wish that the top two floors could be shorter. I wish that ideally you would lose an entire floor on the top because I think the two floors up there stacked together really is what's stretching this up to stretching the proportions up a lot. That's why I was asking about ceiling heights earlier, but the ceiling heights don't seem to be excessive at all. They actually seem fairly minimal. I do think that I'm not quite following the comment about too many materials. We're basically dealing with brick on the main two floors at the bottom and the Nichiha up top. There is some siding at the main entrance, which to me is not really necessary. It could be eliminated. I think the main entry door looks fairly diminutive, and you possibly go with a taller door or either introduce a transom above. I think the Nichiha panels are appropriate. I think they will, to me, they do feel like a more lightweight material. They're not masonry, and nor should they be masonry. I think the north elevation could probably use some fenestration. It's a bit stark. I'm not saying that they necessarily need to put windows in there, but I think something needs to be done to sort of break up at least the forward part of that east elevation as you would see it traveling south on East Bay Street. But that's my 2 cents.
My struggles, I have a couple different struggles. If on the back elevation, it's almost 45 feet straight up. I think there needs to be, and the windows seem kind of just punched in and out of scale a little bit. I think that needs to get restudied. The sides, fortunately or unfortunately, I drive by this lot every day. So you're gonna see the sides of this building and there's no articulation on it now. And I think that has to be studied. And the front elevation, if you take a look at it, a couple things are catching my eye. And Frankie, can you pull that up?
You want
Yeah,
the
that's
perspective or
perfect.
the elevation?
That's perfect. You've got this thin mass here, this column that's probably 12 feet tall or so, but it's really supporting that whole corner. I would feel like it needed more mass to hold that. And I guess this is called out as timber, but it's very, very thick. I'm not sure. Could it be timber? I don't know.
It's called out as wood.
Wood?
So
Is that
it's,
timber?
So it's like
wood
wrap-
beam
wood wrap,
frame.
not
Wood wrap?
like a heavy timber piece.
It's a wrap, I
Yeah.
think.
I don't know. This, because when you look at the scale of this versus the scale of these, it's kind of out of proportion. And the top, I think this is a two-story space up here. And is this windows or shutters or what is that?
Those are like clear story windows, yeah. There's a lot more light into that space.
Yeah, it seems like that was to be lightened up. And I don't know the answer to that.
What's the ceiling height at that end? Because that's the, okay,
It's a two-story space
right,
Very
over on the street side.
yeah.
So I think there's opportunity to do stuff with glass and lighten that up. That's-
Yeah, or either just drop that higher end
Yes.
of the street, you know. I think that would help tremendously. Maybe that becomes a flat roof element. It is sort of, it's more or less pitching up towards the street. Yeah, maybe. Is it not?
I mean, I'm in agreement with the comments. I think the dilemma is when you utilize literally every, when you go to every property line, you're fire rated. So he can't add any. That's why those windows up top are set back. So he can't add any fenestration because he's right at the property line.
That was, yes. It's all about the 0 to 3 feet. There's no glazing allowed.
Right.
So,
And I actually worry a little bit, but there's also, the carriage house is so close at the back. I don't know how close that other property is back there, but. But I have similar concerns about the vocabulary, particularly of the front, the addressing of the streetscape. And kind of the mix of vocabulary that's going on. The corbels are a little traditional looking and everything else. And that column and beam, I found I wasn't really in keeping. And then the upper part, it just seems like an office building landed on top of it.
That's a good description.
So
That's kind of-
I kind of, it could be the representation of it, but it just seemed like a totally different. I mean, I'm all about good contemporary, but it just, you have to do it really, really well. So those are the things I would address. And I can't really tell if you would provide some dimensions next time. It's really difficult to really kind of judge the heights and the widths and sort of the scale of the whole thing.
I would agree with that too. If next time we could have some floor to ceiling dimensions and overall dimensions, it would, because it's a big mass and it's a very thin building, so it's hard to, because the windows, when I look at the windows, I'm struggling with proportions, but I don't have anything to weigh it against.
The windows in one of the renderings almost shows like there's a grid over top of the windows or.
it's divided lights.
Okay.
I agree with it, pretty much everything that's been said. I'll just run down my notes pretty quickly. I think that sort of a scale and mass, it's appropriate where it's sitting. I think it reads, because of the way it's set up, I think it reads as tall
has everything to do with the mass sitting. On the roof, I think the general architectural direction is unrelated to where it sits on the street. I don't think that that means that it's way off. I just think if you look at the surrounding down there and kind of stopped and studied it, if you look at the new building next to it, and then the buildings going towards town up. East Bay Street, it's not really well related to that architecture on the street. I appreciate the fact that the top 2 floors are set back. You know, and so the maximum height is set back, but I think the design reads as top heavy. I think the design is disorganized and kind of lacks a general architectural unification of the architectural direction. And I think that's what we're referring to top of the roof. And I think that there needs to be a little more unification and architectural direction.
And were we reviewing the garage in the back as well? Was that part of this submittal? Or?
Yeah, I think it's in there.
There's not much information about the garage.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah, it seemed like the plate height was excessively high on that, and there were no breeze boards or band boards, so I didn't look at it too much, but the way it's built, it would have like a 12 or 14 foot ceiling, or it would have an attic up there. I mean,
Yeah, dimensions would help a lot. It's hard to sort of scale this, to understand the scale without some dimensions.
It's a challenging site with the being.
Yes.
so narrow.
I think you've peeled off one of the most challenging sites in the city, and I pass it every day coming to work, so.
Great. That was the jigsaw puzzle.
I mean, to me, the biggest issue I have are the top 2 floors. There just seems like a lot of weight up there. Yeah, it's a lot of volume up there. And so if that front, at least that sloped roof could come down on that front, I think that would help a lot. The buildings next door, material wise, they're both heavy masonry buildings. And I would not like to have something that read as masonry being up on that very top. I think it needs to be something that's going to be lightweight. And almost something that's going to kind of recede. And so your perception kind of focuses on the 2 bottom floors. But yeah, I agree with everything that's been said here. Would someone like, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Oh my gosh. So make a motion to defer.
Based on board discussion?
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Darrell. Motion is for a deferral, addressing board discussion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, Becky. All right, Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
Darrell.
Yeah, in favor.
Becky,
Yay in favor.
chair votes with the majority, yay in favor. It passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, our next application is 215 Wentworth Street. Right.
215 Wentworth Street is in Charleston Village. Council District 8 is upgraded circa 1997 in the old historic district. They're requesting a conceptual approval for a new half-story addition, a new roof, a new second floor piazza addition, and penetration alteration. This is the property's location on Wentworth. from existing site photos, context of Wentworth. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
My name is Baker Roddy. I'm representing Mary Beth and Bill Weekly, who are the owner residents of 215 Wentworth Street. I'd like to thank the board for having us back. I'd like to thank staff for their feedback, neighbors that we talked to for the letters of support, and the HOA for their letter of support. We have this here. Those were in the last application. Also the HDF and the Preservation Society for their feedback. Next slide, please. This is the existing structure. The lot has, or the structure has similar structures alongside it on Wentworth Street. It does have some unique characteristics, being the hipped roof. It is on a pseudo corner lot, and the resulting west side piazza has an expanding footprint because there's not a neighbor there. The client goals are to beautify by redoing the roof line, and then unifying fenestration, bringing functionality to the second floor. Currently, the circulation goes through a bathroom and a bedroom, and doing that by moving some of that function into a half story, through a half story addition. The next slide. Here you can see the footprint and the corner lot status. Next slide. You can keep flipping through. Next one. Next. Next. So this is the denied proposal. It was denied on height, scale, and mass. I was brought on after this presentation. I attempted to go back and understand the board feedback. It was responded, it was aggressive, top heavy, the porch info was called out, among some other issues. But the feedback was that there is a decent direction, but it needs a serious restudy. Next slide. Here's a neighborhood study, a massing study. We found in its immediate vicinity, there's predominantly two typologies, that being type A 2-bay single house replica, and a type B, a 3-bay structure. And you can see in the massing diagram there, all those buildings that are defined fall into one of the two categories, about 60% of them being type B. So they're prevalent. Next slide. I applied that massing structure to the previous proposal and found that the primary masses at the one in the front had proportional issues. The width did not justify the height. And then on the rear, where the footprint is wider, the height was justified in the type B typology, but the hipped gable on the rear side was not represented in context either immediately or in the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide. We found some secondary massing issues to address, that being the size of the dormer. It appeared rather massive. The solid paneled guardrail on top of the west side piazza added a lot of mass, and then the floating porch infill above the existing porch is generally frowned upon move. Next slide. Here's the previous proposal with the new proposal side by side, and those are renderings from Lockwood, where the structure has high visibility and high car traffic. Next slide. Next slide. Moves we made were bringing down that front primary massing to fit in again with the type A typology where it meets the street. We broke the dormer massing up to meet the language of the surrounding context. There's precedent of open gables on half stories all along Wentworth, especially in the Charleston Place development. We removed the paneled guardrail and add wood pickets and recessed that, as well as removed the floating porch infill and put that function in the half story. Next slide. That's the previous massing analysis applied to the new proposal, as well as elevations of Wentworth Street. Next slide. The question arose for us, if the individual massings aren't out of context, do the relationship between type A and B in one structure fall out of context in this neighborhood? And we found a lot of examples of structures that along their length have roof lines that change a half story, as well as different footprints. And we found that they are probably done because of additions not included in current construction or original construction. And that was part of the charm of the neighborhood, is that some of these houses told their own story and responded uniquely to their own context. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. These are the proposed floor plans, and you can see on the second floor proposed, there's now functional circulation, and the bedroom that previously sat on that floor that the circulation went through in the existing condition was moved upstairs with the inclusion of a bathroom up there. And the proposed dormer on the planned north side is there for clearance on the stairwell getting up to that half story, similar to, I think, 205 Wentworth that was presented last meeting. The next slide. Here's a section detail showing that hopefully the adherence to the language adjacent to the structure allowed us to meet the detailing standard that's already residing in the neighborhood, and speak that language a little more clearly. In conclusion, we have responded to the board's comments by carving away and refining the mass of this structure, and responded appropriately to the unique conditions of our site while conforming to the context and being an addition to the urban context. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Anyone present from the public that would like to speak? Oh. All right. Frankie, could we get your staff's comments and recommendations, please?
Sure. Let's do the thing again. Okay, the porch infill has been altered to match the existing, and we appreciate the detail of the proposed porch addition and dormers. The previous board motion mentioned exaggerated verticality, and we wanted to ensure that this addressed it to y'all's satisfaction, so I read this as a deferral, but it's sort of a pending with the board agrees whether or not that verticality was addressed. It was debated among staff. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Frankie. Would you like to address anything that Frankie said?
I don't think so. I think the presentation covered.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you. We will now go into board discussion. I wasn't here when this came before. I believe I was out sick, and so I think did it predate you too? Okay. So Fillmore, you're it, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Person, you know, maybe is not the architect. He's the only one who's seen this before. And I thought that clearly what was called out as folks sort of going in the wrong direction on this last time. A great deal of that has been addressed. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think that because I think between to my eyes, because of the increased separation between the front mass and the back mass, the elevation, it makes that front mass read less vertical.
Agree.
And so, I mean, I don't, looking at it compared to the previous version, I don't have any real issues with it.
I don't either. I think that, lowering that front mass has helped tremendously. I think, getting, rid of what I guess I would call a porch enclosure on the upper floor, I think that's helped a lot. Taking away that heavy, parapet, up top and going with a rail instead, that's helped a lot. So I think a lot's been done to sort of, bring down the verticality and to sort of lighten it up, the whole building as well. The one thing that I do think needs a little study is, and it probably just hasn't been thought through yet, is that the porch elements, just from what we're seeing, that they look a little too light. I think the column needs to be made sure that the columns are substantial enough, the balustrade substantial enough, those sort of things. But I think everything else is the way it needs to be going. I'm glad to see that you're getting rid of that 90s arch stair window. That's sort of the kind of the last thing that severely dated this building. Be curious if anyone else has got anything to say.
I agree. I think that with what you said about when I was looking at it again, the columns and the porch detailing looks thin.
Yeah, I agree. There is one other thing, and I don't want to throw any confusion or anything in this, but I didn't have a problem with the simplification of the eave details before. I think those previous simplified details kind of gave the building a little more individuality. But I mean, either way works.
I don't have anything to add to it, but I would agree with Fillmore on the second floor porch. It almost looks like that ceiling system's flush framed. It would seem like you'd want to drop a beam down to give that some thickness, and then that would help the columns, because I think they do look a little spindly. I guess the staff can work that out.
That needs to be detailed properly.
Yeah,
I
think
mean,
it's
whenever
got
that
there.
beam comes out past the column, I just like, it's so suburban.
Yeah.
I don't love the dormer, but
Yeah, I wouldn't have had a problem with a shed dormer before. I think some people tend to look at these things in elevation, and the shed dormers look massive to them in elevation, but in reality,
I
from
love
ground
the
level.
simplicity.
Yeah, I like the simplicity as well.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done here that I thought that the double gable dormer was a little out of character with the rest of it, and that maybe a simple shed dormer that was pulled off the ridge and in from the wall plane would be better, but that's just
I agree.
another idea too. And everybody else likes the double gable dormer. I don't have a huge issue with it.
I think either would work, but my preference would be simplicity. Go with the shed, I think. Also be easier to detail. But I'm fine with just leaving that up to applicant. Looks like you're about ready to make a motion for more.
Or this is conceptual, right?
Yes.
I would make a motion for conceptual approval with the board condition to restudy detailing on the porches, including the column diameters and rails. Final review by staff.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Fillmore for conceptual approval with the restudy of the detailing of the porches, which would include the column and rail dimensions, and final review by staff of permit drawing.
And the dormer.
Um,
Yeah, the dormer.
I mean, we certainly can. I didn't know if that was, I'm trying to get consensus here. I didn't know if that was just me or. And if you would add that in a
Revert to
to restudy the double gable dormer and consider a simple shed dormer in this place.
Give the architect the flexibility to,
Yes.
yeah, that's wise. No one would hate it if you left that. No one would hate it if you
Right,
changed.
that's what I mean. So I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Make it a restudy, not
It-
a
it-
consider.
Yeah, but it sounds like we all
we need to do that.
are saying that the shed would probably be better, but we will leave it up to the architect.
When I opened this at first glance, that's the one thing that caught my eye.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was the porch columns coming out past the siding on the smaller porch, but maybe that'll get looked at the next.
I think the overall porches need to kind of be thought out a little more. Elements. The express beam column.
You can see
Portions.
it back for preliminary.
I think that's probably
Okay,
wise.
so then
Okay.
not final review by staff. We'll see if
It's a conceptual. Okay.
conceptual.
Okay, so our restate the motion would be conceptual approval with the condition that the porch detailing be further studied and to consider using the simplified shed dormer option. And let's see, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Daryl. All right, Fillmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, okay, and Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
and I vote with the board. Application passes unanimously.
Is that still final review by staff?
No, Thor removed that, so I wanted to be able to take a look at more of the porch detailing. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda is 694 Rutledge Avenue. Frankie?
694 Rutledge is in North Central Council District 4. It is a Category 3 circa 1935 corridor district requesting preliminary and final approval to replace concrete tile and add 3 new dormers to the roof. This is the property's location on Rutledge. Existing site photos. Some context of Rutledge. Sandboard map showing the history of the structure. And then I'll turn this over to the applicant.
Have some props.
All right.
Hello, my name is Tyler Smith. I'm working with the owners of 694 Rutledge. Bill and Fillmore, you were here in September when we appeared. I believe Daryl and Becky, you were not yet on the board. We applied for the opportunity to replace the existing concrete tile roof with copper, and we are going back with a new concrete tile roof. We searched, kind of combed the nation far and wide, and we found a product with the various samples that we received that we feel like is the best match for what was there, which was originally green tile roof. It's faded pretty badly to kind of a brownish gray, and it's hard to tell, but when you look at the tile underneath the front dormer overhang, there's a good bit of the green left over, and we're sure that it was green tile roof. This product is Westlake Roofing, the Villa 900, and the color is prairie green. It comes from California. The other things that we changed due to the board comments, sorry, I kind of got in front of myself here. Existing tile roof there, as you can see, the rear, the west facing plane has been coated with something white at some point before the owners purchased it. The 3 dormers that we are adding, which was actually the dormers themselves were approved at the last meeting, but we have tailored the detailing a little bit farther on that. There's a new dormer on the south, the north, and the east facing sides. The adjustments that we made to this, and I'll go to the elevations here. We lowered the flat, I want to call it flat roof section of the north facing dormer about 6 inches so that its intersection point in with the main ridge line is lower to allow for the proper integration of the tile. Now that we're doing the tile on the roof, the flat section will still be flat lock copper as it was before. We think that's the best way to integrate and to get a proper roofing seal between the 2 materials. We slightly altered the siding of the dormers. We're matching the existing wood shingle on the front dormer. So the front existing west-facing dormer, we're matching the detailing of that west-facing dormer on the 3 new dormers that we're adding here. And I think that's really it.
Any questions?
I missed, I was listening and looking at the same time.
Sure.
The flat seam copper is going where?
It's only going on the top of the north-facing dormer, which is so wide that we need to have this. So it's going right here. It can't be seen from anywhere other than the birds.
Okay, so it's the back side of that.
It is. It's the back side of the building. It's the side that faces the larger commercial building to its north. And even from the upper level of that building, you couldn't see the copper on top. It's just too high. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Anyone from the public would like to speak? No? Okay. All right, Frankie, could we get your staff comments and recommendations?
We just had observations that the applicant has provided some tiles and we don't have any additional comments. The board just only gave conceptual approval last time. So we're recommending the consent, a preliminary approval. Why does that stay staff conditions? There aren't any. And final review by staff of permit.
Okay, thank you, Frankie.
I do have one question. I'm sorry that I missed. You're replacing in the existing original dormer on the front, you're replacing the window. Is that correct?
We are. The existing.
That window is marked as non-historic, I think, on your drawings.
It is. It's a newer vinyl window, so it's a non-historic window. We're putting in, we're replacing that small double hung window with an operable casement window for egress.
And I'm assuming that the other dormer windows will match.
The other dormer windows will match. Yes, sir.
Okay, and you had no questions for Frankie? Okay, all right, thanks, Tyler. All right, we now go into board discussion.
Yeah, we approved the dormers.
It's really
And
the,
that's the roof sample,
Yeah.
They
but not the
approved
color.
Big dormer on the north.
Is that the color?
That tile and that color, yes, sir.
is that a green?
It is a green,
Okay.
it's a,
Looks like-
it's a
looks
great
great to me.
green.
And I know that roof was green
The
early
color
in its life.
is called prairie green.
Oh, I can see, I can see it a little better now.
We didn't want to have a bright,
Sorry,
Okay.
I always forget that light.
we didn't really want to have a bright green. And the owners actually were like, can we please have a gray? And we were looking at some other things and I was like, well, it really would be better to have a green if we can. So we felt like this was the right
That roof was
solution.
originally green, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it is green, yes, sir. And this is green. If you saw it against the gray, I think you would see maybe against the black.
I can
You
see
see-
the slag green.
So,
Yeah, that was fine.
I think it's the light. It's really more than slag. It really is.
all right, field trip outside?
It's dark.
Oh, yeah, it is dark, isn't it? Oh, yeah, okay.
A little greener than that.
I can see more green there, yeah. I mean, I don't really have an issue with the color. I think the important thing is that it's getting a concrete tile roof on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that we're maintaining that, so. I'm flexible on the color.
Sure it is. In its day, that was a very definitive roof.
I'm sure it was.
It was green and it was real. That's a very close shape, it looks like, from what I can tell from the photographs. Pretty close.
It is as close as we could find. There were a lot of very handsome roof profiles that were made back then that are just not made any longer. Yeah.
Yeah, I put one on a number of years ago around the corner on Grove Street, and it was a concrete tile roof. You don't see a lot of them around here.
Yeah.
All right, well,
The other.
I have no
Anything
comments.
The dormers were approved previously.
Yeah, the dormers were approved previously.
You want a motion?
Can I make a comment for the
Sure, yes.
future? I think if they're asking like to replace that window, that people should have to submit photographs of it, like showing, it's hard for us to know that that's a vinyl window. I mean, I think in this case, you know, it's, but in general, sort of prefer to see at least some photographs showing the vinylness, you know, the fabrication of it.
So back just when I first, until I, really sort of blew it up and read the small notes, my first reaction was, no, you can't, that's probably original, and you can replace it. And I read the note, it said it was not, I just wanted to confirm that. In fact, it was not an original.
I think that might have been addressed in the previous.
I don't remember that.
I don't know.
That window coming up at the previous meeting, that's
I'm not sure that came up either, but
I think that that's the change in those, replacing that window is new with this application.
well, we actually did ask for it last time, but I don't think we actually talked about it. So
Okay.
I don't, this isn't a new thing that we're asking for now. We intended to do that because this is gonna be an extra guest room.
Yeah.
And you quite simply need to be able to get out.
Well, do we have a motion?
Like a motion to approve?
Got a motion for approval by Daryl. I assume we're saying final approval with review by staff of final permit drawings. Okay. Got a motion on the floor by Daryl. Final approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Fillmore seconded. Okay. Fillmore?
Yeah, in favor.
All right, Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Becky?
Yeah, in favor.
And chair votes with a majority, passes unanimously. Thank you,
Very much.
Howard. All right, our next item is 15 Hampton Court. Frankie, would you do the honors?
Yes, sir. 15 Hampton Court is in East Side, Council District 4. It is not rated because it's new construction in the Old City District, requesting preliminary and final approval of a new two-story single-family residence. This is the location of the Hampton Court. Existing site photos. Some context of Hampton. And the previous structure on the property. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Hi, good evening. I'm Amanda Brzoko, and thanks for the opportunity to present today. And thank you for your comments from the last meeting. I did my best to address them all as best that I could, and I'll be sure to point out all the ways that I address them as I flip through the slides today and as show you the updates I've made as well to the drawings since you last saw them. So just a brief update to go off of what Frankie had mentioned. 15 Hampton Court is a proposed new construction. It's a two-story single-family residential home located on the east side behind the cigar factory, and the proposed home will sit on an existing vacant lot on Hampton Court, which is a street comprised of predominantly two-story single-family residential homes. For the site, there has been no update to the site plan, but per the comments, we've made sure to note that on the site plan, we are flood zone AE with elevation 10 foot, and there are no grand trees on the site. And for the site plan with first floor, this has also remained the same as previously shown. We're still showing all the same site work and exterior lighting locations. The block plan showing the existing street is comprised, as I had mentioned before, predominantly of the two-story single-family residential homes. And the proposed home will be contextual to the site and its surroundings in terms of scale, proportion, and architectural features, as you can see in the existing neighborhood photos. The architectural language in the design includes the gable roof, the gable returns, the railing and column details, and the brick step details. The landscaping plan has remained the same. It will just be minimal with a poured oyster shell driveway and simple plantings of fan palms and pampas grass. For the first floor plan, largely remains the same. We made a minor shift on the interior stair and under stair powder room, which the shift actually allowed for us to better align the windows on the west facade, which you will see when we look at the elevations. And on the second floor here, again, you are seeing just the shift of that stair, which affected the window at the top of the stair to align with the window at the bottom in the foyer. And you'll also see a small change in bedroom 3 where we shifted the closet space, which allowed us to better center the two windows on the rear facade. The roof plan, there were no changes made since the last meeting. We switched from the hip roof to the gable roof as presented last time to make the home more contextual to its surroundings. For the elevations, there was just a few small changes that we wanted to point out. All windows are now to be the Sierra Pacific double hung, which we were showing previously, but we will no longer have any more casement windows. They'll all be double hung, and the exterior window color will change from black to white. We also updated that lap siding and the pertaining detail per the comments that we were given from the last meeting to now show the 5/8 hardy artisan lap siding. And we also made sure to note the base flood elevations and the design flood elevations. And for those flooding purposes, we've also made a change to the building's foundation. You'll see now that we're showing a CMU foundation wall, still to have that stucco finish, but this allowed us to add the necessary flood vents. We are showing 3 flood vents on the east elevation and 3 on the west side of the house. And in this elevation, we also are showing the graphic revision to that roof line. We were previously showing a line there that shouldn't have been there. And on the west elevation, you can see a slight change in the window alignment that I mentioned earlier with the shift of that stair. And we added a smaller window above the kitchen sink. That is new. And as well as the flood vents you can see shown there on this side of the building. building section, no major changes here. For the sections, you can see that we've updated those siding details to reflect the 5/8 inch hardy artisan lap siding, and we also updated that foundation detail to show the new CMU foundation with the crawl space and the flood vents, as well as the soffit detail with the drip edge. And for the front porch, you can see that we made the update to the handrail per the comments we were given, showing it now returning back down to that first tread. And the top tread now extends 1 inch out. And both porch details include the updates made to the building foundation, while the porch will remain on the raised slab. And this sheet, just to reiterate the changes with the windows all to double hung white and the siding to a 5/8 inch thickness. And some additional details were also added for the front porch, making sure to align that column and beam that we're showing. That's the major changes, no changes to electrical, but that's about it.
I have a question. So you're in an A10 flood zone and your finished floor is at 11.6, is that correct?
Yes,
So how do you do
12,
Yeah, wow.
12.
12? Mine says 11.6, maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, I see. Okay. Does that work? And then it's a 2-foot freeboard?
It's at 12, but the siding isn't coming down. That's what's throwing you. Siding's supposed to be coming down over the like section 2 on A7.
She's in an A10, right?
Yeah,
And the first floor is at 12, right?
yeah.
Don't you have to have 2-foot freeboard and then the structure?
No, your floor can be at the 12, but the BFE if you're not in the V zone. But the siding wouldn't end at the first floor. It would cover the structure.
Okay.
I think that's what's.
Do you, got a couple of questions. Yeah, your windows are what, an aluminum clad?
Correct, yes.
Okay, you have see drawings S1 and S6, there's some conflict. I think you maybe need to revise S1 to match S6 as far as the paving material.
Paving material.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the way that the side steps come down and engage the ground plane, so just clean those up
Okay.
so they match. And I assume you know to use the smooth hardy and not the
Correct.
faux wood grain. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Frankie, would you like to, oh, I'm sorry, anyone from the public? I don't think so. You want to say anything, John? Okay. All right, all right, Frankie, would you like to give us your staff comments and recommendations?
We just had observations that previously they had only received conceptual approval, which is why they had to come back. Details have been refined per the previous board discussion. The thicker siding has been indicated. East elevation drawing has been corrected and the beam and column details have been corrected. And staff did not have any additional comments, so we are recommending preliminary approval with final review by staff of permit drawing.
Okay, Frankie, would you like any clarifications or rebuttal? No? Okay. All right, that concludes the public input portion. We're in the board discussion.
I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
I think one is that we mentioned it earlier, like the siding itself is actually gonna have to come down to cover the first floor framing. So that'll, on the side elevations, it'll look a little bit different with that siding coming down. I'd say that rear door, if that could move, it looks like it's kind of behind that column. If that can move a little on the north elevation, that door that's on the right and the window above, if they can shift a little bit over so that doesn't look like it's behind the column. And then I just had a couple of detailing questions. I didn't know kind of like the end of the front handrail. And also, don't think the building department is gonna let you do the 1'4" overhang. I think you're in the 3 foot. I think you're only gonna be allowed to do a 1 foot eave. You only get a 1 foot projection in that fire, within that 3 feet, basically. It's just a fire code thing. And then, yeah, actually, I was gonna comment on the porch detailing, but then I saw your larger detail later, which was more correct. So those were my comments.
Anyone else? I just had a couple of things, and it's just a preference, the way I like to see them. The window details, I think, in my opinion, still need a little bit of refinement. I think the sills are a little underscaled. It could be a little beefier. I tend to like to see the sills end at the side window trim and not extend further out. I think that's more of a suburban type detail when they extend further. And then maybe in beefing up the sill, maybe you eliminate the trim piece below the sills. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll entertain a motion. Someone like to make one?
I'll make a motion. Let me see if I can remember everything. I mean, there's just a couple of small items, really. I'll make a motion for approval with, let's see, the north elevation door and window moving to the left to get out from behind the column. Let's do the window, the heavier window sill. And I think there's just a standard one at Southern Lumber that you can find. I'm not sure what's proposed on the end of the stair handrail. I don't know. Maybe articulation of the bottom of the handrail. Did I miss anything?
Okay. Motion on the floor for, let's see, they're asking for preliminary and final, so, final. Or, I guess it would be more preliminary.
What?
Is your motion for preliminary?
It's for preliminary.
All right. Have a motion on the floor for a preliminary approval.
With final details, final to staff.
Okay. Preliminary approval, with final review by staff of permit drawings with the conditions that on the north elevation door and window shift to the left as not to be behind the column. Introduce a heavier windowsill and better articulation of the bottom of the handrail. Right?
Handrail.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Daryl seconded. All right, Fillmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
and chair votes with majority, passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, our final item is 58 Line Street. Frankie?
58 Lime Street is in Canterbury, Labor, Council District 4. Unrated, circa 1852 in the district, and requesting conceptual approval for new accessory structure and covered bar on existing patio. This is the property's location at the corner of Lime Street. Existing site photos. Some context of Lime Street. And Sanborn map showing history of the structure. And I will turn it over to the applicant after.
Thank you, Frankie. John Sullivan, that's our studio, representing the client. So it's pretty simple. These are two accessory structures in the existing restaurant patio back there. Neither of them are connected to the main structure. Patio's been there for a while. One of the structures is at the rear. It's a restroom structure, 1-story CMU block with stucco with a metal roof, and it's backing up against a painted CMU wall. The other structure is a roofed bar open structure at the rear of the building. It's where it's set off the building. There's an existing wood fence there, so we're taking away part of that wood fence to build this, and we have to set it away from the building. There's a bunch of panels, and that's where the trash storage is. So it's a little simple slope stoop with some heavy wood columns and wood beams with a structural metal roof on it, bar below it. And then some miscellaneous other things. Kind of open up front right now. There was a living fence there. There's a living fence down the rear side of the property that was blown down a few months ago during one of the storms. So I didn't put it in there because I thought they were rebuilding it already, but they stopped. The plan is to rebuild that living wood fence about 6 feet tall where that CMU planter is. All the vines are there, just down. So it'd be pretty simple to build that back. And then there was an old tent covering the dining back there. There's 5 metal poles back there, and the plan is to put some sun sails in between those for shading. So fairly simple, and I'm here for any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Anyone? Well, I guess no one from the public. Frankie, would you like to give us your staff comments and recommendations?
Very tiny. We just had 2 observations. The structure is subordinate and minimally impactful. And the pergola and accessory building soften the view of the structures behind. Staff was recommending a conceptual approval with a final review by staff of permit documents.
Thank you. John, anything? Okay.
Nothing further to add.
All right, okay. We can now go into board discussion.
Seems like very simple structures to me. I don't have any issues.
I don't either. I drove by and took a quick look at it today, and this is an improvement over what's there now. So I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But the only one thing I might mention is, you know, yeah, your little restroom building, could even like do some fig vine or something, just to soften it up a little bit, kind of go away. It sounds like you're not wanting to draw a lot of attention to it anyway.
No,
So it'll just kind of soften.
All right, put those sail sheds on pulleys and cleats so you can pull them down really quickly. No, I think it's fine.
Can I get a motion?
I make a motion for conceptual approval with final review by staff.
Drawings. Conceptual approval. Do I have a second?
A second.
Darryl seconded. Okay. Fillmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Darryl,
Yeah, in favor.
Becky,
Yeah, in favor.
and chair votes with majority, passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Art.
Oh, yes, do a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.